Yvette Cooper, I know this is not in your hands, but do you now expect Diane Abbott to be the Labour candidate in Hackney and Stoke Newington?
I assume so, yes. I mean, I'm very glad it's been resolved for Diane. She continues to be a very important figure in the Labour Party, all the things that she's done, the campaigning work that she continues to do. So I'm glad this has been resolved. She's
a long-time colleague of yours. How do you feel about the way she's been treated?
I think everybody would have liked to see the process speeded up, but I think I'm really glad that it's resolved now. It's not just Diane's often talked about as a trailblazer, but it's also some of the key things that she has done along the way. She was crucial in exposing the Windrush scandal, for example, and so some great work. So I think it's good that that's resolved.
But it's left a rather sour taste in the mouth, hasn't it? I think as far as one could make out, a lot of Labour Party members and as far as the public pays attention to this thing, a sort of wider sense that this has all been unfair and unnecessary.
Well, look, I'm glad that it's all resolved now, but I would say, having been outdoor knocking, pretty much every day, talking to huge numbers of people since the election was called, nobody has raised it with me on the doorstep. The things people are raising, actually the most important thing everybody's been raising is the state of the National Health Service. So I do hope you will be pressing Victoria Atkins on that because, the state of waiting lists, the really shocking... I actually have some really, really awful stories just in the last couple of days alone.
Leave Victoria Atkins to me, but let's just deal...
I hope you will, because, honestly, somebody paying £13,000 for a knee operation because they couldn't wait for the huge long waits they were going to have to see on the NHS.
Point made. Let's just deal with one other story that's in the papers this morning. You may not know anything about this, but it is reported that seats in the Lords were being offered to Labour MPs so they could stand down and make space for the leader's hand-picked candidate. If that were true, that would be wrong, wouldn't it?
Well, no party can do that, but it's not the way the system works. There's a whole process with the independent committee that will vet nominations. There have to be processes in terms of the numbers of nominations and that are designated by the Prime Minister and so on. So no party can do that or make those sorts of commitments. The thing that
So Keir Starmer can't promise anybody a seat in the House of Lords?
That's not the way the system works. The thing that we do know is we've seen a series of quite shocking Conservative resignation honours lists from Boris Johnson to Liz Truss, and Keir has already said that he would change the way that he approaches all of those things, and indeed he said that he wouldn't have a resignation honours list as well because it's been so distorted by the way that the Conservatives have done that.
OK, let's talk about the wider issue of candidate selections. The Labour Party likes to describe itself as a broad church. Is that an accurate description of a party that has no room for Fazia Shaheen or Lloyd Russell Moyle, sitting MPs, but can accommodate Mark Logan, a Brexiteer, and Natalie Elphicke, who called Keir Starmer Sir Softy and said about you that not only have Labour got no plan of their own to tackle illegal immigration, they simply do not want to. You embrace her, but not Shaheen or Russell Moyle.
Well, neither Natalie Elphicke nor Mark Logan are standing as Labour candidates.
Yeah, but you welcome them as Labour MPs.
And we want people to support the Labour Party. We want people who have not voted Labour in the past to vote Labour this time, because it really is time for change. We have had 14 years of Conservative chaos. They are escalating the chaos with more unfunded promises at the moment. We've got Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt doing a kind of Liz Truss on steroids with the way in which they're handling things now.
You're not dealing with my question.
But it is, the important one is we want people who, across the country, who have not voted Labour in the past to vote Labour now.
Including people who've attacked Labour?
We want people to change their minds. That's what politics is about. We want to persuade people to change their minds, and we want to vote. We want people to vote Labour. Yes, it's true we have clear standards and complaints processes around having standards for candidates, and yes, it's true that Keir Starmer has changed the Labour Party after the 2019 election, and right that he should do so. That is why we are now here as a party, ready to be in the service of working people across the country. I think that's important.
People who only 2 weeks ago were saying that you, personally, would let anybody into the country.
So we can talk about the migration proposals because
Yes,
we are
I want to come to that now.
that's really important.
I just want to know something about the Labour Party.
I do want to persuade people to vote Labour who haven't voted Labour before, because otherwise we won't change the country. And I think people do increasingly recognise that we are facing chaos, we are facing crisis in our National Health Service, we're facing huge damage to our economy. It is time for change, and that is what Labour is setting out.
One last point on Labour. One of your opponents, who earlier this week predicted that you'd let Diane Abbott stand again, said that if Keir Starmer can't even stand up to Diane Abbott, what's he going to do when he's faced with Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump?
They just make stuff up, don't they? I mean,
that's not made up. That's an opinion.
Well, what are they
How do you respond to it?
I mean, literally, are they trying to compare Diane Abbott to? I mean, to phone calls?
Come on. You know what I'm asking you? If Keir Starmer, who said day after day earlier this week, nothing to do with me, I'm not going to touch it, it's going to be decided by the National Executive Committee next week, then, when the pressure hit, suddenly decided, U-turn, it's OK.
No, what he said was, all the way through, was that there had been no decision to prevent Diane from standing, and I think that was right. So, you know, this has been resolved now.
But what he said was, it's not up to me, and then suddenly it was up to him.
Yeah, but I think, look at Keir Starmer's record, right? The way
I'm looking at his record of this week.
The way he has changed the party compared to 2019 is huge. The work that he has done, you and I...
with what happened this week.
But this
First
is
he said, nothing to do with me, it's somebody else's decision, and then suddenly, 2 days ago, he decided it was his decision.
Yeah, I think, look... this is resolved, and I'm glad that it was. And if you look at the work that Keir Starmer has done, the leadership that he has shown to change the party compared to 2019, it is immense. You and I would have had a conversation like this after the 2019 election. We would never have imagined that we would be in this position now. That is a result of the work that Keir has done to rebuild the Labour Party, but also to say, look, the whole point of the Labour Party is to say the country needs to change to work for working people across the country again. We need to rebuild our economy. We need to rebuild our public services. We've set out practical, costed, funded first steps in order to be able to do that, and we have to turn the page on the Conservatives' chaos. That's actually what this election is really all about, not, you know, news stories of the last couple of weeks. It's actually about the National Health Service, it's about our economy, it's about getting police back on the streets.
Well, let's talk about one other thing that this election's about, immigration. You'll inherit an annual net migration figure of something north of 670,000. Is that too high?
We think that migration should come down, and that's the plan that Keir is setting out is in order to bring net migration down. It has trebled in the last 5 years under the Conservatives, and right at the heart of that is a big increase in work migration, and that's because there's been a fundamental failure to tackle skills shortages, to deal with some of the problems in the labour market. And just to give you one example, which just, to me, sums it up, is engineering apprenticeships have halved and engineering visas have doubled. And that is because we've had a long-term failure under the Conservatives on both the economy and on migration. And that's why we are setting out new plans which will mean that training and workforce plans are triggered where there are high levels of overseas recruitment.
All right, well, let's deal with actually what will be your biggest problem, which is adult social care. There are 300,000 foreign workers in the adult social care workforce, that's about 1.5 million people. And there are about 180,000 vacancies this weekend. Are you seriously promising that you can train nearly 500,000 people to fill those vacancies and substitute for the foreign workers? I mean, your plan is great to have training and so on, but it's going to make no dent at all in the immigration numbers.
Well, we will continue to have a health and social care visa. And immigration has always been important to this country, including for international talent and for different areas, but it needs to be properly controlled and managed.
So you won't bring down the numbers, but it's OK to have 300,000 foreign workers in social care?
Hang on a second. So we've got people who are working here and who are doing a great job here, and that's really important, and we should value the work that people who have come here from abroad are doing as part of our vital public services. But we do need to tackle this continued reliance in certain sectors on overseas recruitment.
And that is particularly on health. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say these people are doing a vital job, they're fine, and then say we're going to end our dependence on them.
Yeah, but the whole point is that the reason that whole sectors have become very heavily dependent on overseas recruitment is because of a failure in the UK labour market. It's because of a failure of a Conservative government. Some of that is around skills. Some of that is around getting people back into work. So some of the plans that Labour's been setting out about a new jobs and careers service and a youth guarantee for 18 to 21-year-olds so that we get more people back in the labour market, we would have a big increase in the number of people, British and UK-based residents in the workplace if we actually took that action. But what we also need to do is make sure we tackle the skills shortages. So health and social care, we would have a new integrated workforce plan for health and social care that would involve better training.
For 500,000 people?
It would also involve fair pay agreements in social care as well. So we do need to make those improvements and we do need to have a long-term plan. Otherwise, we're going to just continue to see these failures in the economy as well as in the migration system.
There's a lot of tough talk in your press release today about cracking down on bad bosses. I had a look at the numbers here. The Department of Business lists just 500 employers out of 1.1 million in this country who paid below the national minimum wage, which is the indicator that you have selected. And that's less than 1/20th of 1% of all employers. The plan that you're putting forward will have absolutely no impact on that 670,000 total, will it?
So this is an issue about standards, and if you have employers,
I understand,
but it's important. So
but you're putting
I'll come back
to the solution to the immigration issue.
Well, let me come back to the issues around the training and the overall net migration thing. Just on the standards issue is really important because if you have employers who are breaking employment law, that actually means there's a greater likelihood that they're going to be exploiting people. They shouldn't be able to just recruit from overseas. We know that there has been a pattern for many years of employers exploiting overseas workers and overseas recruitment and using migration to undercut pay and conditions. We need to be clear, we are putting an end to that. We used to have this 20% discount that on overseas recruitment that the Conservatives brought in. We campaigned to get rid of that. Okay. What's been going on under the Conservatives is they've been running effectively a free market, unregulated migration system around work. We're saying you need proper controls in place. So we supported the new measures that the government brought in the last few months, but we're saying we need to go further. We need to go to the heart of the issues, particularly around IT, around health and social care, around engineering, around construction. In each of those areas, we would draw up new workforce plans to make sure that we're getting the skills and the training here in the UK.
May I just ask you one last question about Labour's offer, as it were, to the public, or what Labour wants to represent itself. Your leader said yesterday that he wasn't just relaxed about people becoming rich. He was, I'm quoting here, doggedly determined that they should be rich. Not comfortable or ambition. He said rich. So Labour is the party of ambition, I suppose. Now, one issue that could torpedo this picture is that your decision to put VAT on private school fees, which a lot of aspirational parents send their children to. Now, it's reported this morning that yet another private school, a third of whose children are special needs children, has closed down because of the likelihood of fees going up if there's a Labour government. Where are those families supposed to send their children?
I don't know the circumstances of that school. What I would say is I think it is fair for private schools to pay VAT like other organisations do, and for us to put that money into recruiting 6,500 more teachers for our state schools across the country, in making sure that we can get mental health professionals into our schools to deal with the mental health crisis that is haunting many of our young people as well. We know that many of these organisations have put their own fees up quite substantially over the last few years. That's for them to deal with. But I think it's really important that we have a system that says, look, this is just about fairness, and we're going to put that money into investing in the education and the life chances for all young people.
It's fair, but not for parents who want to use their own money because they have their aspirations for their children.
Sure, and that's their choice to do so. That is their decision.
But you're not
to
giving
do
them a
so.
choice, you're making it prohibitive.
Well, all we're saying is that private schools should pay VAT like other organisations do. That's what organisations do right across the economy, right across society. We're just saying that's fair. Now we'll use that money to give every single child the best chance in life. That is what Labour's about. That's what Labour believes in.